Welcome back to the final race of the night in Series 5, Round 5 for PCA Sim Racing from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. James Point, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Taylor Burris here as we get set to bring you one more race this evening from Texas. And maybe not a surprise then that it happens to be a pair of Texans who have two of the top three spots paired with a pair of New Yorkers, if you can believe, Taylor.
It's a very impressive run indeed so far for these drivers, but we got one more race to go, and this one's going to be just deciding who will claim the final race here tonight.
Final race here where Teddy Framheim is taking the week off again, and that is really going to open up the championship in particular for Leif Peterson, one of the Texans that we talked about. He's from the Maverick region and may well just lead tonight the points leader if things go his way. It's a big if, and there are still 40 minutes of racing to determine who comes away the big winner from COTA. Time to take you through the starting grid for tonight's Pro Class race presented by Porsche. Chris Pies, Bergman, your pulse there with a 2:15.612 ahead of Michael Cooper-Smith, who will begin tonight from second. Third is Lee Peterson, we just mentioned. Fourth on the grid, the 12 of James Hugh. Chris Walsh begins the seating from the fifth position. Sixth is Liam Rositas. Josh Vieira starts in seventh. Eighth will be Matthew Kikas. Ninth on the grid, the 41 of William Anderson. And the top 10 completed on the grid by the 170 of Chris Braun.
In 11th position, we'll go to James Patak, followed by Greg Carr in 12th position. Jonathan Schum will be starting from the 13th position, followed by Mark Hugh in 14th. Joe Stiffel will be starting from the 15th position, followed by Doug Metzel in 16th. Igor Soiker will be starting from the 17th position. 18th, Shabala Benyopaje, the last car to take a time. 19th goes to Justin Sassang, followed by Stephen Kalurikalia in the 19th position.
20th on the grid will be Dewey Kang. Jacob Schum starts in 21st. And Stephen Coulier starts in 22nd on the grid to round out the field for this Pro Class race presented by Porsche. Another look at the track facts very quickly. It's Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Texas, the full course. 3.426 miles, 5.513 kilometers, 20 turns. We race at daylight, at daybreak. Just about 8 a.m. instant time on the default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2020. It is yet again 66 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 67 degrees Fahrenheit track temp, winds to the south of 5 miles an hour, humidity of 59%. 40 more minutes to tackle this racetrack. The best of the best will get their crack at it. And after what we saw last week, I have to believe it's going to be wild. And Chris Pies definitely, I think, has a bit of redemption that he's going to go after the way Road Atlanta panned out. He was so close to the victory and then got into it right at the very end. And Jason Lisner cleared them both to get the victory. But can he go get his second win of the season and potentially vault himself into the championship conversation properly? He currently sits 13th in points after missing the first race, but there's certainly room for things to change.
Certainly is, certainly room for improvement. We'll have to wait and see here as we get ready to turn these drivers loose for the next 30 minutes or the next 40 minutes or 18 laps once again here. But it's going to be interesting to see with some of these drivers who are not here for the past 2 weeks, who have not been here to collect points, what this could mean for some of these drivers.
It will be very intriguing to see what this means for a lot of these drivers, because it could go very, very wild, be very intriguing, entertaining, interesting, all the same, as Chris Pies is going to lead us to green here at Circuit of the Americas. You see the Lone Star on the side of his car, very proud Texan, as are a lot of them in this field tonight. We've already hit many of them over the evening, from Maverick, from Hill Country, from Longhorn, from Lone Star. A few more Texas surprises underneath the Texas sun to get us going in our final race at Circuit of the Americas. Leon Bridges we can bring into this too. Why not? Why not? We're in a musical mode tonight, Taylor.
Might as well go with every single song we can think of here before the night's over with.
Not necessarily every single one, just ones that have pointed references today.
Well, of course.
So, again, we'll see who's asking, what's the story, Morning Glory? At the end of all of this is Chris Pies is the man in control, waits on the green, off it goes, off we go. Pro race, round 5, presented by Porsche, underway at COTA, and they will thunder up the hill for the first time, and a big move there to the inside as look at that move from Josh Vieira to get underneath a few cars there and bounce off each other. He just stuck it right underneath Chris Walsh and made it stick. And Josh Vieira already up into 6th. He'll see a little bit of room, or maybe not, to Liam Rositas.
He's going to get Liam Rositas and move him up to P number 5 now as they snake through the S's to climb the hill up to the top of the hill before, as we have a car going around. That looks like to be Matthew Kikis. No, Chris Walsh actually in the 104. Looped it around, makes hard contact. It looks like to be Mark Youth of the 34.
Trouble between those two. We'll see how race control sets it up, but pretty dinged up machine for Mark Youth. Almost certainly going to need a lot of help to get that car fixed up. Liam Rositas will take a black flag for an orange zone violation, so Rositas must have had a hand in that somewhere, and we'll see where exactly that was.
Tough night for Liam Rositas, who was getting ready to settle in and have a good run, but now he has to serve that penalty.
He has to serve the penalty, and then I know there was another incident a little bit further back. Looked like contact potentially between, no contact between the two Team Haggerty cars. Doug Metzel just got loose off of the corner and spun himself out, so he goes around. Same for one of the shoes, I think it was Jonathan Shum who just got in trouble there.
As we get things settled up, everyone still continuing to racing here as they work through the stadium section of the course for the first time. Still single file for the majority of the field, nose to tail, as they work their way up through turn number 13, 14, and 15, and continue on still. Chris Pies leads by about 0.3 of a second over Michael Cooper-Smith and James Hughes in third.
Be curious to see what lap times look like once these drivers get into a rhythm. They're not quite there yet, but certainly closing in on it, as Pies and Cooper-Smith are the first two across the line. And looks like Rositas will duck down pit road to serve his penalty. Jonathan Shue also going to get a penalty. We'll see if Mark Youth ends up getting anything at the very end of all this. I know he was involved with, I believe, another one of the, might have been Chris Walsh, who's got a pretty dinged up race car too. But Pies, Cooper-Smith, and James Hughes, brother to Mark, your front 3 in the opening lap at COTA in the Pro Class.
Top 5 separated by less than a second now as it starts to get a little bit more separated. Now it's up to the top 4 separated by less than a second as they continue to climb their way up through the field right now, snaking through the S's as they climb up. And looking through the field right now, one of the closer battles, other than, of course, the battle for second, has to be the battle for 6th between Matthew Kikis and Chris Braun right now. Those two are going at it, this 15 and 170.
Chris Braun in the 170 machine there. William Anderson, Greg Carr in the mix. Matthew Kikis also there. Josh Vieira, 2. Beginning to see some separation form, and looks like this front group is all right, but I have to believe Chris Pies is on a huge mission tonight. This is a big rebound night for him after the way things panned out last week. You know he was unhappy after the race at Road Atlanta, got the win at Barber, almost had it at Road Atlanta, now has the opportunity to win the big race on home turf. I think it already was going to be a race that he had circled on the calendar for Series 5. But with the way things have panned out over the last 2 weeks, doubly so. I have to believe that there may be few drivers in this field more invested and with more to gain than the 14 machine.
I could not agree with you more on that subject, as well as Christopher Pies, one of the veterans, one of the long-standing veterans of the PCA Sim Racing Series, is definitely one deserving to have a shot of taking home a championship, as well as taking home the checkered flag here tonight. But he's still got a little bit of time to do that. 35 minutes left on the clock, and still, Michael Cooper-Smith has been a very competitive car past few weeks now. So we'll have to see what he's able to do. Can he take the fight to Chris Pies as well as James Hughes?
Now, we said earlier on in the broadcast that Chris Pies has a special crew chief of sorts. And for those who thought we were lying, we're not lying. There's Mr. Chip, his pet cockatiel, aboard the box for the number 14 machine, calling all the shots. He's pretty good at Barber, so we'll see if the same sort of luck falls upon Chris Pies here, but pretty sporty. To be fair, he looks good with a Racing Radio's headset now, doesn't he, Taylor?
He certainly does. I mean, that's one good-looking bird with that. And the Cockatiel's definitely going to be up on the box here tonight to try and help Christopher Pies get a hometown victory here. Of course, Christopher Pies from the Lone Star region, as he's going to try and see if he can take home a checker flag and work his way up through the point standings, as he's currently sitting in P13 right now in the standings.
So we'll keep our eyes on the Birdman, Chris Pies, and we'll wait to see whether or not Mr. Chip can call him to victory one more time tonight. But for now, the battle actually, I think, you could argue maybe second, you could argue maybe fifth, you could argue maybe eighth if you wanted. A few good ones here. 13th and 14th, too, between Igor Soyko and Dewey King.
Yeah, great battles all around the track right now. Maybe not for the race lead, but we still have other positions and other points to give out here tonight for a championship in the pro class here. But we're watching that battle for 18. William Anderson, Greg Carr, James Patak. Don't forget Shabala Benyopaja and Joe Stiffel are in the mix of that battle for P8 as they continue their way up through the stadium section of the course. All these drivers putting on a great performance, especially Joe Stiffel and Shabala Benyopaja. They started outside the top 15 and have climbed their way up inside the top 12 here in the last 3 laps. So a great run for them.
We'll turn our attention to Matthew Kikas and Chris Braun in this race. Braun out of the Northeast region, Boston area. Matthew Kikas out of Apex, North Carolina, the Carolina region, just outside of the state capital of Raleigh, though the region extends to the west. It covers most of the center of North Carolina, the Piedmont of North and South Carolina. So Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, Greenville, Spartanburg, and of course, Charlotte, along with Durham and Chapel Hill. 2 powerhouse cities in that bunch, and Kikas, the most consistent representative from the Carolina region, up at the front of this field throughout the years. He's been around from the very beginning of PCA sim racing and had to do a very nice job to hold off Chris Braun up at the top of the hill in turn 1. Braun just about got to the left rear quarter panel of the 15 machine, but for now, Kikas holds Braun at bay.
He certainly has, and pulled a little bit of a gap over Chris Braun by about 3 car lengths, maybe make it 2 as they climb the S's up to the top of the hill before making the run down to turn number 11 right now. And not too far up the road either is Joshua Vieira, and that's 75. So this is a good little battle here for 5th position.
Good battle indeed for 5th as Kikas just about lost it there. And there goes Chris Braun to the inside. Kikas tried to put the power down too early and just lost grip for a split second. That's all it took for Braun to get underneath him. So Chris Braun now up into the 6th spot.
3 cars battling it out for the top 5 as they go down the back straightaway. Here comes Matthew Kikas with a head of steam down the back straightaway as they head towards the braking zone of turn number 12 right now. Is not close enough to put any pressure on him yet. He will try to take a peek to the inside as they approach the braking zone of turn 12, but can't quite get to him as they hit entering the braking zone of turn 12. You'll see Chris Braun pulling a little bit of a gap, but here comes Kikas with a head of steam off corner exit as they approach turn 13 into the stadium section.
They come into the stadium section once again. You keep your eyes on one of the best battles on track. The other really good one, Cooper Smith and James Hugh are together. Those two maybe about a car length separated from one another as Braun and Kikas continue to weave through this madness. James Patak, Greg Carr, and Sebal Benyopaja are in a good battle for 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Great battles all over the track right now. Shabala Benyopaja trying to catch up to Greg Carr along with James Patak to see if he can break into the top 10 here to try and see if he can improve upon his position. Currently, Shabala Benyopaja in the points standing is sitting 17th. The Metropolitan New York region driver trying to see if he can get a good finish here tonight before he heads to his home track next week at Watkins Glen.
Not to say that we do have a lot of New Yorkers in PCA sim racing. They get their moment next week before 2 more big races. One that I'm looking forward to personally. We go to yours truly's favorite circuit in all the world in round 7 and the first ever race in Asia for PCA sim racing. The Suzuka circuit plays host to the penultimate round of the championship before we head to Daytona for the season finale on October 23rd. plenty of action to come up in the final 3 weeks after this one of PCA Sim Racing. And some action coming up in the world of iRacing and Podium Esports over the next week as well. 2 events that we can tell you about. The first is the on-site gas systems 199 at Talladega Superspeedway for the Sim 500 Trans Service Cup Series. Cup cars in action on the Podium Esports Twitch channel next Monday night, October 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern, before the Esports Racing League returns to action from Talladega. Or rather not Talladega, how about the Roval Charlotte Motor Speedway? They'll go at it next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Twitch.tv/ERL Racing, your home for that event.
The great fun field action here on the Podium Esports Network with everything you love about racing. Talladega, Charlotte, Roval. I mean, what more could you ask for?
More Porsches.
Well, of course, more Porsches.
More 10-gallon hats if we're in Texas. More sweet tea. More barbecue brisket in particular.
Please.
And we may end up making a few enemies on the podcast, but as far as I'm concerned, this is how this works.
Okay, go for it.
The Carolinas get to lay claim to pork-based barbecue. Pulled pork.
True.
Theirs. End of discussion.
No other.
Fight me later. Ribs, I let Kansas City, St. Louis, and Memphis fight for, but Texas wins beef brisket barbecue every day of the week, without question, not even close.
You are wise to say the beef brisket, but just to let everyone know, James Pike, of course, he is Carolina, so if you need to fight him about...
I'd say that anyway. There's no bias in the pork thing, but to be fair, those are also reflective of what each region is focused on.
Of course.
So
now when you talk... Now you're making me... Thanks.
As I say, we start talking about pigs. A reminder that the pink pig in this race, Michael Cooper-Smith, is still right there with Chris Pies, and it's not like Pies is able to get away. Now, we talk about rear ends of cars being squirrely and drivers being very particular about trying to get absolutely every bit of power out of this thing, and it's not like the 14's rear is stable. Certainly no restraint in trying to get the power down as fast as he can, but you can only take it so far at the end of the day.
Yep, Michael and James have been keeping Christopher Pies honest here in this race early on, but still a lot can happen between now and the checkered flag. But the top 3 pretty much have separated themselves from the rest of the field. Leif Peterson's about 2.6 seconds back, pretty much in his own little bubble right now, as he has no pressure at all from behind of Joshua Vieira, who's another 2 seconds back.
Leif Peterson, I think we need to spend a minute talking about how good Leif's been over the season. Maybe not before Chris Pies gets bumped by Michael Cooper-Smith, who just about got to his inside. And so Pies and Cooper-Smith now fighting in the stadium section for the race lead. We'll get back to Peterson in a moment, just to be safe here, because Cooper-Smith almost sent Chris Pies around for P1, but you know the 22 is hunting for the race lead now.
I wonder who's chirping more, Christopher Pies or Mr. Chip, when it came to that inside pass that Michael Cooper-Smith had tried to put on Christopher Pies momentarily.
It's a good thing that Mr. Chip can only mimic English and not actually speak it, because I'm not necessarily convinced that the words would have been so nice in that little incident over in the stadium section. But I think we've got enough of a breather to where we can...
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe?
Potentially. Yeah, make it. Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Let's go talk about Leif before something happens.
Yeah, go talk about Leif before we end up with something major at the front of the field, because Leif has been really consistent through this year. And by virtue of the fact that Teddy Framheim is not racing this evening, it is going to be Leif Peterson that takes over the points lead. He comes into tonight with a second, a third, and a fourth place finish in the 3 races that are being counted, minus the drop, and I believe a 6th in the initial race at Laguna Seca. That is his drop right now. That's going to get it done most races, most times, end of the day.
But I think he's going to need to have a win, possibly, especially if Teddy Framheim does come back in the picture and picks up where he left off.
Potentially. Framheim, though, is going to have to deal with the second drop race. You can drop 1 race in these 8. You can't drop 2. So Framheim's going to have to come from a race down and make something happen out of this, which isn't impossible, but it's going to be tough. So we could see him come back and win some of the next few races, but I would be hard-pressed to believe that you can make it and be in proper contention if you don't run at least 7 races.
Well, that's why we run the races indeed, so that way we can crown the best champion here throughout the entire 8-race schedule of the PCA Sim Racing Series. As we go back up to the race lead right now, these 3 drivers, James Hughes, Michael Cooper-Smith, and Christopher Pies, yeah, they're still tied nose to tail right now, still putting pressure on each other as they continue racing, as we're about 2 laps away from the halfway point.
Pies and Cooper-Smith and Hughes, maybe in the listener spot. Have you heard that one before? Perhaps. Maybe.
Perhaps.
I figure Pies' idea is maybe not to cast a shadow here, but to potentially dust them all and maybe roll with it into victory lane.
I would agree with that.
And see if this car can be electric, perhaps.
Could be electric. I mean, lost my thought for a second here. I was thinking about something.
not Taycan electric, to be fair.
Oh, of course, no.
Although we do love the Taycan.
Yeah, of course. Well, if you think about it, actually, here recently, the Taycan for the Porsche was actually the highest selling Porsche this past quarter for here in the United States. So a big congratulations.
Around the world, I thought, right?
I think so, but it still was the best-selling Porsche out of all the Porsches. I mean, that's a big congratulations and a step forward to cleaner energy when it comes to all things automotive. I mean, we all know electric motors is going to be the next best thing in eco. So this is going to be very interesting to see what Porsche continues to do with the Taycan, as it recently just debuted. So a very good job for Porsche.
Hey now, 2020, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Gotta love it.
I think that, I think we've covered at least the A sides from what's the storyboard included. Now, we have in fact referred to every single song. So, done well on the musical front tonight. It would be a little bit musical last week, but in either case, Chris Pye still out in front of Cooper-Smith and Hugh, and it's so hilarious how tight they are together again. And there's contact, and there goes Pies around, and Cooper-Smith and James Hughes is going to take over the race lead. Here comes Lee Peterson to the inside. That was coming. I had a feeling it may happen. So now Lee Peterson is your race leader, and we'll see what Pies can do to try and gain back up to Cooper-Smith, who you figure was probably faster. We'll see what happens, but we talk about people who have incentives to go quick and try and get a winner at Cooper-Smith as well, because we know how tight it was last week, and now lights are on. So Pies and Cooper-Smith,
please report to the principal's office.
yeah, well, not even a report to the principal's office, but Michael Cooper-Smith has gotten the black flag for the incident over in turn 12. They have pinned that on the 22 machine. So there goes Cooper-Smith's chance to win this race. And now it is 2 Texans at the very front end of this, and Hugh and Peterson racing for, actually 2 Texans running in second and third, but now Hugh, who had the damage, is going to slide back. Peterson's going to grab the race lead, and now Pies is going to try and hunt her down for second.
He's going to try, because James Hughes is going to be struggling with the damage to the nose of that Porsche GT4 as they slither through the S's right now as they work their way up to the top of the hill. And it looks like James Hughes is struggling right now with that damage to the nose. He's starting to fall back from Lee Peterson in the 913 Porsche. And it's going to be a tough call for him to work his way up and finish this race, as we have just about hit the halfway point of tonight's race.
Just about have hit the halfway point, and first and second on the racetrack stand to be first and second in the point standings once this night is done. And Teddy Framheim's second race that he's missed is accounted for in the standings. So big moment, and Youth is going to need to find a way to keep as much track position as he can in the final 20 minutes of tonight's race. That's going to be very big. I think it's going to say a lot about where his championship hopes are going to lie, as Lee Peterson would be the points leader as it stands. That's another point to keep track of as we carry on through this. But yes, the damage there not causing any sort of issue. Chris Pies is going to get to his inside, and Pies will jump into the second spot. so it is Texan 1-2 proper all around, as we remind you that tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing is presented by VRS. Drivers in PCA Sim Racing Series 5 have the option to run VRS setups if they so choose. If you want to learn more about VRS and find out how you can become a faster driver, log on to www.virtualracingschool.com. As we turn now to our Midway Race Report, which is brought to you by Porsche. At Texan 1-2, as it stands, Leif Peterson in the 913 car is your race leader. And Peterson, fastest man on the racetrack too at the moment. Out of the Maverick region, if we're going to be technical, that's Dallas and Fort Worth. So he is P1 ahead of Chris Pies, who is faster by almost half a second that last time by. 17.6 to a 16.8, over half a second in fact. Pies out of the Lone Star region. James Huth is in third out of the Hudson Champlain region of the PCA. Fourth is Josh Vieira, Potomac region, Washington, D.C. That's where he calls home. Fifth spot is Chris Braun out of the Northeast region of the PCA. That's Boston. Matthew Kikas right behind him in sixth out of the Carolinas. We talked about him earlier. William Anderson in the bright yellow machine out of the Longhorn region of the PCA runs in the seventh position. And for those who need a little geography lesson, Longhorn covers San Antonio, so this isn't too far away from him either. James Patak, 8th out of the Peach State region, one of the Georgia folks. 9th is Sabal Bedyapanchai out of the Metropolitan New York region, and then Joseph Stiffel runs in the 10th spot out of the Chicago region of the PCA.
In 11th position is Dewey King from the Metropolitan New York region right now, that number 32, followed by Igor Swaker from the Chesapeake region. He's currently running in P12. Greg Carr from the Central New York region is running in 13th position, followed by the 398 of Doug Metzel. He's currently running in 14th. 15th is Michael Cooper Smith from the Hudson Valley region. He was running up as high as almost about to pass the race lead till he got called down pit road for penalty with contact with Christopher Pies. In 16th, you'll find the 05 of Liam Rositas from the Upper Canada region. He's running in the 16th position, followed by Chris Walsh in the 104, currently in 17th. Jonathan Schum in the 97 from the Carolinas region is running 18th, with Justin Sang in 19th. Mark Hughes runs 20th.
Jacob Schum 7 laps down in 21st. Another Carolina region driver, and Stephen Goodleary didn't take the green flag. We scored 22nd this evening, and that concludes tonight's Midway Race Report, which is brought to you by Porsche. So now to the race lead battle, which is now Sans Cooper Smith, and that could have a big effect in the points as well. Cooper Smith came into tonight 5th in the standings with a drop of 182. So this is going to hurt unless he can get back up into the top 10, but even still, that 182 is lower than the 200 for Chris Pies, even lower than the 272 for James Huth, or the 296 for Lee Peterson, which is really what he's going after. But even though Peterson and Pies are teammates, I'm not convinced Peterson's just going to give this over.
No, he's not going to. I mean, it's been a while since we've seen Leif Peterson take home a checkered flag here on the PCA Sim Racing Series, so he's going to be fighting for this win. It's just as hard if any other driver behind him. So even though these two are teammates, we are still going to see them racing hard each other all the way to the checkered flag.
And these are two drivers that are as experienced as they come in PCA Sim Racing. Been there from the beginning in Series 1 and have been tremendous throughout the years. And this is, I think, their biggest shot in the limelight they've had in a long while, if not ever. They've been around, they've been consistent, but haven't necessarily found the groove as far as the P1 speed goes. Might change here in just a moment. There goes Chris Pies to the inside of Lee Peterson. Sticks it on down in there. Got the draft. Nothing doing that Peterson can do. And Chris Pies is back to the race lead, much to the joy of Mr. Chip. And I suppose it's chirp, chirp, chirp all the way to P1. I guess I don't know what sounds Mr. Chip is making in the radio, but I have to imagine he's pretty happy now, to say the least.
I'd say he's a lot happier now compared to the incident that happened between him and Michael Cooper Smith.
So Pye's back in front of that. Last lap was blistering, by the way. A 16.556. Solidly 0.3 faster than Peterson, and then almost a full second faster than anyone else on the racetrack. Chris Pye's is flying right now. There's no doubt about it.
Well, looking at his best lap time was a 2:15.96. Just to put that in perspective, nobody else has ran a time faster than a 2:16.4. Or actually, no, a 2:16.1. That was done by Michael Coopersmith. So he is over a tenth faster pretty much than anybody in the competition right now. And as we just saw, he is over a second faster than his teammate Leif Peterson, who runs in second.
Really beautiful stuff here for Pye's, who will roll through the gears to fifth, down to fourth, and now holding off, waiting down to third. You downshift through these S's and gears, and then you get back on it and give up another gear, sometimes coming up the hill here before you get that big run coming out towards turn 11, that hairpin at the back end of the circuit. But back on the gas, Pye's will go, and then really smooth sailing. And the other thing I think worth noting here, compared to everybody else, Pye's is doing a tremendous amount of braking with the car. Gets the car down into low RPMs for each gear, and then downshifts. There's some cars where you use the transmission to slow up in the corner. This is not one of them if you're Chris Pye's. It's brakes, brakes, brakes all the way.
Yeah, you have to use the brakes for these cars. These are not very where you can easily brake with the downshifting. If you're not too careful, you could actually end up blowing the engine big time just by using the downshifting while you're braking to help brake the car. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to use the brake for what it's meant to be, slowing the car down and then following with a downshift. So you have to be absolutely careful, precise on your timing with these Porsche GT4s.
That, plus I think you're more prone to wheel spin. It seems like the smaller cars with the smaller engines that are a little bit more dependent on mechanical grip and the like end up suffering more when you try and use the transmission to get these cars to slow down, that it is more of a brake thing, and you get to get away with that a little bit more later on.
Couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, that's just such the amazing difference that with these GT4s compared to what we've seen in the past with the GT3 Cup cars as well as the GTE Spec cars. I mean, it's such a difference with these cars to where it basically puts these cars back into the driver's hand. No more depending on aero, no more depending on that high horsepower that to help pull them down the straightaway pretty much with their competitors. This car is more focused on putting it in the driver's hand to showcase a driver's talent and skill. If you can drive this car, you can basically drive any of one of these wonderful Porsche GT cars that we have on the iRacing service.
The key phrase that we've used here is mechanical grip. That's the one thing that separates the Cayman GT4 from the GT3 Cup car or the 911 GTE that we've seen run in PCA races in the past. Those cars are more aero dependent. You see more action with the fenders, with the rear wing in particular, and that's what makes those cars a little bit faster. This car does not have near as much downforce dependency. It's more about mechanical grip. It's a little bit lighter too, a little bit less power compared to its GT3 and GTE counterparts, and it does put a little bit more in the driver's hands in that sense. It is more about skill and maybe a little bit less about the tech behind your car. So certainly something to keep note of as we carry on through the final 10 minutes or so of this race.
And if you think about it,
on track, I think that we need to pay attention to. We looked at Peterson and Pye's a lot. Also, would be remiss not to look at this battle for fourth. William Anderson and James Patak having a good run. And Patak, also the highest running of our Team Haggerty drivers, in the 5th position.
he certainly is putting on a great show and a good run for Team Haggerty as he's trying to work our way around William Anderson. Up through the gears they will go before they hit the downshifting once again into the braking zone of turn number 12. Patak not close enough to catch up to William Anderson to make a pass, but he will still be there to capitalize on any mistake the 41 of William Anderson will make.
Just in case, right? It's not necessarily a given, I would say, that these two are done running it. Oh, that was a big move there from Patak, who was looking. It was tight, it was close, but it wasn't necessarily what Patak needed to make the move happen proper on Anderson, so work still to be done there. Chris Brown and Matthew Kiki still having a good battle for 8th and 9th. We talked about them before. And how about Sibal Benyopadja and Greg Carr? As Benyopadja tried to get underneath Carr, and then Carr managed to get back around him. It was another one of those overshoots in turn 12 that we've seen all night long from Benyopadja. So those two had a good battle for 11th and 12th. Cooper Smith just got around Liam Radzitis and now has damage to the right front of his machine. So he's having he's had an adventure somewhere, I suppose. And we'll see if we can piece together what exactly happened to him. And I think the answer came in that incident over in turn 12.
One quick point I wanted to bring out regarding these Porsche GT4 cars. These cars are the closest thing to a street car that we will see on the iRacing service with these cars compared to what our drivers out there on the circuit can come close to. I mean, it's basically a little extra performance compared to the street car, and of course safety modifications to help protect the drivers on the track. But other than that, I mean, it's basically a stripped down version of what you would see on the road, and these drivers are definitely knowing how to wheel these race cars around this circuit, indeed, with these Porsche GT4s.
By no means is it explicitly turnkey, though it can be made pretty turnkey, but you're right, it's not that far removed from the street version of the Cayman that is sold. The Cayman GT4 that you see in the showrooms is not that different from what we've got on the racetrack right now.
And that's why a lot of people in the sports car industry love competing in GT4s, whether it be, of course, this beautiful Porsche here or any other of the GT4 competitors that run with different manufacturers. This is why it's so popular, because it puts them back into the driver's seat. It depends on the driver's skill level. And that's why we see a lot of people go and compete in the GT4 class, whether it be an IMSA or the SRO. And it's probably one of the most exciting series and classes of sports car racing to watch.
And I think the most interesting thing, when we talked with PCA leadership, with the steering committee, with the Jim Hemmigs, the Doug Atkinsons and company back in the spring about the idea for Series 5, the point that they kept on coming back to was that this is a car that is most like what PCA Club Racing runs. PCA Club Racing runs a healthy amount of GT4 action. You see these cars pretty often at PCA Club Racing events. And so, in that sense, this immediately becomes the most relatable car in all of iRacing and PCA Sim Racing to participants, and there's added value in that I don't necessarily think is the case with some of the other things.
Could not agree with you more. I mean, yes, the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car or the GTE car, probably one of the more well-known sports cars. I mean, of course, you have the Porsche GT3 Cup series all across the world, and then, of course, the 911 RSR. I mean, that car has been in a championship-winning car and multiple race wins in Daytona, Le Mans, Sebring, you name it. That Porsche has probably won it, if not has won it. I mean, but that's not what our drivers in the PCA, as far as with club racing, compete and drive in. That's for our factory drivers. This is the car that we see any one of our PCA club members and PCA sim racers prefer to drive and know more familiar with.
Interesting points all around, as we'll take one more time to remind you that tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing is brought to you by the Z1 Dashboard. The Z1 Dashboard is the racing analytics application that shows you everything you need to know about your position on track, your competitors' positions, and where you'll be after pit stops. The Z1 Dashboard can also tell you where your competition is, when you should pit, how much fuel you should take, and what the weather is like. You can sign up to 10 different dashboards to each car and switch between them with a click of a button, so the required information is always at your fingertips. To find out more about the Z1 Dashboard, please visit www.z1dashboard.com. As always, Z1 Dashboard is offering a free sim racing software package to one PCA Sim Racing EDE student each and every Friday night during Series 5, and our lucky winner for this evening is Dean Chapman from the Northern New Jersey region in the PCA Challenge class. The PCA Sim Racing EDE program provides free sim racing coaching from novices turning their first lap in the sim to the most seasoned professional drivers. Sign up for the EDE program at PCASimRacing.com/EDE, and you might be the next winner of a Z1 Dashboard software package. Chris Pye, still your race leader. Leif Peterson has not let him go. Chris Braun and Matthew Kikis, though, in another good battle in 4th and 5th.
5.5 minutes left to go on the clock here at Circuit of the Americas, and I gotta say that battle for the lead, it may not look like it's going to be close enough, but we never know. Christopher Pies, Leif Peterson, those two still, they've already completed their pit stop actually, so they are good to go till the end, but still a lot could happen between now and the checkered flag, as these two drivers, even though they're teammates, they both know that they want to take home the checkered flag here at their home track here, and with 5 minutes to go, anything can happen.
Lots of things left to shake out here, lots of differences left to settle, although the battles are spreading out towards the back of the field. Not much to be said about anything really from fifth on back. Everybody minding P's and Q's. So it is Pies v. Peterson and Braun v. Kikis. Those two are what we'll be watching in the final 4 minutes and change of tonight's race.
A lot still to go here, but we still got a couple of good battles. We still got that battle between Chris Braun and Matthew Kikis. It's the battle for fourth position. Those two have been lined up nose to tail since the drop of the green flag, and still are going to be battling here as they continue to work their way up through the S's.
Continuing here, continuing now, it is Chris Pies and Leif Peterson, the two Texans who face this field, Lone Star versus Maverick, just as they would want it to be here. And still, only 0.7 of a second between the two. Braun and Kikis are in the mix as well. And then you have to go a little bit further back to James Hughes, who, even with the damage he picked up in that incident with Cooper Smith and Pies over in turn 12 in the middle of this race, a very solid run for him to maintain P6 after all that.
Indeed, and a very good run for him. Even though with that damage, he is still out there. I'd say probably have to be the hard luck award for him, if he, just due to the fact of all the trouble that he had to deal with that nose damage. He was leading the race at one point, but after getting caught up with the incident between Chris Pies and Michael Coopersmith, he's got that damage and really unable to challenge for the race lead. If he didn't have that damage, I think we'd be telling a different story here tonight.
Valid questions all around as James Hughes continues to work his way around the racetrack, and Pies and Peterson are still there. Braun and Kikis are still there. If you look a little bit further back, Greg Carr, Chabal Benyopadje, and Dewey Kang in a decent battle with some lap traffic in the mix there too. Joseph Stiffel and Igor Tsoiker also there. And then Michael Coopersmith struggling with Leo Rodriguez. Both of those drivers received penalties early on in this race, and really have struggled to recover from either of them. But the bigger story is going to be the hit that Coopersmith takes in the points. As we talked about a little bit earlier, Coopersmith is really going to fall off compared to Leif Peterson in particular, who again is going to throw down a very consistent night if he can hang on regardless of what happens in the rest of the field. Peterson will be the points leader if this holds in a few moments.
Safe to say Leif Peterson is our Mr. Consistency of the season.
Mm-hmm. No
as we continue.
Doubt about
Go
it.
ahead.
No. You first. You first, good sir.
Of course. Well, we're about to hit our 2-minute warning here, or 2 laps to go left in the race, but I'm still going to be keeping an eye on that battle for the top two, even though they're kind of still separated by half a second. Anything is still possible. I think Leif Peterson could be saving a little bit of tires before making one last-ditch effort to try and take the race lead away from Christopher Pies before we get to the checkered flag.
And he was faster than Pies that last lap by 0.2 of a second, so it's not totally out of the question. Chris Pies and Leif Peterson first and second as it stands, and we will keep our eyes peeled to see what exactly will come of all of this at the front, as Peterson is looking for his first win in a long time in PCA sim racing competition, and Chris Pies trying to get his second win in 3 weeks. It could very easily have been 3 for 3 had things been different in the final chicane at Road Atlanta on last Friday night, but as it stands, don't think he complained about the win on home turf. This is the one these two want, maybe more than any other race. And then, of course, the whole championship piece of it too, which is definitely on Peterson's mind. Pies is not in near as good of shape because Chris Pies missed the season opener at Laguna Seca, and his drop race is a 200-point value right now. So I would say he certainly has more than he needs to gain. Peterson's got some breathing room, so if he wants to go points racing and come home with a second place finish and bank it, maybe not the worst thing in the world for the 913.
No, but still, it's home soil here for both Leif Peterson and Christopher Pies. You kind of want the bragging right to be the driver in your region, in your state, to say, yeah, I won at our home track in the PCA Sim Racing Series this season, and y'all are going to have to wait till the next season before you can have a shot to dethrone me. So that's a lot still on the line, even though Leif Peterson is racing for a championship.
And even though we've been here many, many, many times, never has a Texan won on home turf here in PCA Sim Racing. That would be very special, I think, for Chris Pies to pull off if he can get it done. They are on the last lap, by the way. Final time up to turn 11 here.
It's going to be a Texas 1-2. These two are still battling it out as they go down the hill, heading to turn number 11 for the final time. One of the opportunities we could see Leif Peterson try a late braking into the turn. He will try and do it. Will he make it stick to gain the ground? He will indeed. About a car length separate the two drivers as they go down the back straightaway.
They will thunder down this back straight for the final time. And it will be maybe the last shot here in the stadium section that Peterson's going to have. He's going to have one big shot into 12 if he decides to go for it.
Here they go into turn 12, but we see both of them wash up the track just a little bit as they continue on through their way into turn 13 through the stadium section of the course. Leif Peterson clipped the curb just a little bit, but is able to continue on, still within a striking distance for an attack as they approach the final few sections of the course.
They carry off through the stadium section. It's the turn 8 replica now. That's all Chris Pies has to navigate, who got a shunt from Michael Coopersmith, had to gather it back up, managed to charge his way back past James Youth, and then fellow Texan Leif Peterson, who will pick up a very solid amount of points in second. But the story tonight and the Texas King is Chris Pies. It's Texas 1, Texas 2, Lone Star and Maverick regions pacing the field of the pro race, and Christopher Pies wins at home. He is the winner of PCA Sim Racing at Circuit of the Americas, Round 5, Series 5, Pro Class to Christopher Pies. And I guess Mr. Chip does somersaults or flips. I don't know. Perhaps, maybe.
Probably just does a little dance for the most part.
I don't know. We'll get Chris to tell us here in a little bit. But Texan wins in Texas. Big win for Chris Pies. No doubt whatsoever as the rest of the field comes across the line. Igor Schweiker in line. Joseph Stiffel done. Waiting on Jacob Shub. He's the last car here on the lead lap to finish off the race. And once he wraps up, then suspect will be, and actually no, will be Jonathan Shum, I believe. He's going to be the last one to finish on the lead lap here. So certainly work to do, but everybody else, Liam Ranzitas now done. Michael Coopersmith finishes in 14th at the end of this race. Metzel, Liam Ranzitas just wrapped up. Chris Walsh-Mark Youth still trying to wrap their races up, but not terribly far away. And then all about Jonathan Shum, Jacob Shub just came across the line to finish off his race in 20th. So big night there for the Texans. End of the day, and point swings abound. End of the day too, Taylor.
Of course, and no great points day for some of these drivers, but a lot of hard work for some others.
A lot of hard work to be considered, to be done, to be dusted. Jonathan Shum coming through the last section over in turn 18 and then in 19 and 20. Tough to get that thing to wheel around the way it has been, but he will soldier on and bring it home in the 19th position to round out round 5 of PCA Sim Racing. And a good note here at the end of all this, Mr. Chip was sleeping during this whole thing, so absent from the box, I suppose, tonight, I guess.
Well, I guess he got that one win. I feel like they felt like he deserved to take the night off after getting him that one win. But now that he's got the second one, I'm pretty sure Mr. Chip will not want to miss the next victory.
I'll come back and watch the replay later once he's done, I guess. Off
He'll celebrate later.
Whatever the birds do. But in either case, Chris Pies, your race winner over Leif Peterson. Josh Vieira comes home in third. Fourth to Chris Braun as the Texans do donuts over in the Turn 20 complex. Fitting, I suppose, at the end of all this. Matthew Kikas finishes in the fist fight 6th to James Hughes. William Anderson was 7th. James Patak 8th. 9th, the Greg Carr 10th. The 770 is the Bob Benyo podcast.
Dewey King will come home in 11th position, followed by Joe Stiffel in 12th position. 13th goes to Igor Swaker, followed by Michael Cooper-Smith, who had a tough time with that penalty recovering in 14th. Doug Metzel will come home in the 15th position, followed by Chris Walsh in 16th. 17th, Liam Rositas, Mark Hughes, 18th. 19th goes to Jonathan Schum, the last car on the lead lap. 20th goes to Jacob Schum, 7 laps down, followed by Justin Shang in 21st. And rounding out your 22-car field, Stephen Calurgaria, who did not start the race.
Now to the booth comes Chris Pies, who gets his second win in the Pro Class of Series 5 of PCA Sim Racing. And we showed Mr. Chip on the broadcast with this headset on. We figured that he was making lots of calls this evening for you. And then at the very end, we learned that he was just taking a nap. So you were all on your own in a way that you might not necessarily normally be for this race, Chris. So I guess, did that make it any more difficult to get the job done tonight?
Yeah, he when the incident happened, he threw his headset down and stormed off, and it was like, that's it, I'm going to bed. But no, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a blast. I always like driving COTA. I got a lot of experience here, and it was great to share the podium with Leaf, one of my real good friends on this.
I think we'd be remiss not to ask. So I know it was tight for those few laps. So everything that happened between you and Michael leading up to the incident, just take us through what you experienced behind the wheel there.
Yeah, so there was a couple of times where he somehow was able to put the brakes on pretty good coming into turn 12, and he did it a couple times in a row. So it forced me to have to drive a defensive line. So I actually was not driving the line that I wanted to drive. So he made me make my adjustment, and then on the turn that actually the contact ended up being made, I saw him coming, but I had already committed at that point to, I think I was already at apex or so, and just kind of braced myself. Luckily, I think he hit me in the door, so the damage was minimal, so I was able to continue on. I know Jim Huth behind us wasn't as fortunate, it sounded like, over the radio. So, it happens when you race hard. Incidents happen. I hope it was a good show. It was fun racing. It was fun clawing my way back up to the front. But I enjoyed it.
Plenty of fun. And you made the point to us just a moment ago that Leaf, one of your best friends, we made the point that it's a 1-2 for Texas drivers at your home race in PCA Sim Racing. It's a win here. I believe it also may be the first win for a Texan in PCA Sim Racing at Circuit of the Americas, which says something since we've been to COTA, all 5 series of PCA Sim Racing. So in that sense, this has to be maybe a little bit more special than normal for you.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, COTA is a place that's near and dear to my heart, and I know Leafs as well. We race here with the PCA. We instruct here. We do driver's education events here. We do racing here. So to be able to come to a track like this where we race and drive on in real life, and then do it in the virtual world, it's something special. I mean, what a time we live in to be able to do it. So I'm grateful for that, and kudos to iRacing as well. I mean, their model of the track is spot on. There's a lot of places on this track that I've only learned after doing 1,000 laps around here, I'd say, that I started to pick up little nuances, and they transfer over to the sim really, really well. They did a great job with the scan and the building of this track.
So then the next question, make it 3 for 4 at Watkins Glen next week. What's the game plan to try to go to New York and steal one from the Hudson Valley and the Hudson Champlain and the Metro New York and the Central New York chapter drivers, for whom next week is a home race?
Yeah, they're going to be racing tough. Watkins Glen is a heck of a track. It's a classic on the, when you think of iconic motorsports tracks in North America, Watkins Glen is right up there at the top of the list. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy Watkins Glen, but the competition is going to be fierce, that's for sure. I know a lot of people that race in the series really enjoy that track, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be stiff, and I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Plenty of people that I know you need to thank, Mr. Chip included, of course. But who else goes on that list of folks that make it possible for Chris Pies?
Absolutely. I like to thank my family again for putting up with me in this crazy thing that is racing. Also like to thank my my virtual sponsors, Consberg Marine and WTW Racing, and also Casey Carden Motorsports for letting me do this in real life. I'm blessed to be able to do this, and thank you guys and the PCA for putting on a fantastic show. And thank you, Pike. Thank you, Taylor, for putting on a good broadcast week after week. I mean, you guys do this 4 times every Friday. This is that's quite the marathon every week. So kudos goes out to you guys as well. Thank you.
You know that Chris Pies has been around for a long, long while when I lose first name status without question. So, Chris, on behalf of everyone at the PCA and Podium Esports, congratulations on win number 2 of the season. We'll see you at Watkins Glen International next Friday night to see if you can go get number 3.
Sounds good. See you guys then. Thank you.
Chris Pies, the Birdman, winner for the second time in the Pro Class in Series 5. A big, big win indeed for Chris Pies, which won't necessarily vault him right into the championship fight, but he certainly stands to gain a lot of points in that respect. We sort of glossed over that. The focus on that end certainly goes to Lee Peterson, who leaves Circuit of the Americas as the points leader, but that's not to say that Chris Pies didn't put himself in a good position with tonight's win either.
No, it certainly didn't, and it's going to be a big, interesting factor to see what could happen as we got these last 3 races left to go in the season. Watkins Glen, Suzuka, and, of course, Daytona. So if we don't see Tammy Framheim coming back into the championship for the Pro Series, we could be talking a totally different point system and play out for these drivers. And especially with all the other classes as well, we've had a couple of drivers also miss several races here tonight. We saw that did not hear. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen these last 3 races. Can drivers overcome the adversity that they had to face here tonight? And can we have a surprise winner once again this season?
We may not. It just depends. We'll see. But in either case, we'll find out next week at Watkins Glen International. But before we get to Watkins Glen, a few events to tell you about in the world of Podium Esports coming up. 2 in particular. First up on Monday night, it's the On-Site Gas Systems 199 for the Super 500 Training Service Cup Series at Talladega Superspeedway. That broadcast you can find next Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's October 5th on your calendars on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. And then the Esports Racing League heads to the Roval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. That broadcast can be seen next Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you need a date for the calendars, it's October 7th. You'll find that on twitch.tv/ERL_racing. We are back on air with PCA Sim Racing next Friday night from Watkins Glen International. Final race up in the Northeast before we go to Suzuka and then Daytona to round out Series 5. And again, as always, the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel, the main home for all the action. You can also find us on the Podium Esports Facebook page, twitch.tv/Bearded Sim Racer. A few spots to be able to tune in to PCA Sim Racing coverage. But before we go, Taylor Burris, final thoughts from Circuit of the Americas and round 5 of PCA Sim Racing.
Well, everything is bigger in Texas. We saw the action was bigger than any other race that we've had this season. Great racing in all 4 classes. Of course, we saw the Benets dominate once again here at Circuit of the Americas. And of course, I think one of the biggest and the most greatest ones was for the Texans to take home a home victory in the Pro class. So a great effort to see Christopher Pies, the Birdman, take home the checkered flag here. Lee Peterson, though, comes home with the points lead right now. So a lot of questions are still going to be unanswered. Will we see Teddy Framheim back next week? Will we see other drivers who missed their race tonight come back and try and capitalize on strong finishes when we head up north to Watkins Glen?
A point shakeup indeed, and if you want to talk about hairpin type corners, Watkins Glen's got a fair few of those as well. You think of turn 1 there, the run into the bus stop, the entrance to the boots, and the heel of the boots, and maybe the exit of the boot, amongst others. Might be a boot time to see who's going to fight for the title. Yes, you caught what I did there. I give you credit there. So
I think the thing is, the boot theme should have stuck a little bit more here because we are in Texas, but I think the boots are going to be next week's pun next week.
Yeah, we'll need them a lot since the track is literally boot-shaped in a corner. So we'll see who gives Das Boot to Das Field, I guess, at the end of next Friday night's action. PCA Sim Racing, October 9th from Watkins Glen International. Stay tuned. We'll start to see the points battle shape up in all 4 classes, and we'll begin to get an idea of who is fighting for Series 5 titles. It took a turn tonight. We'll get a little bit more clarity in our crystal ball next Friday night. That will conclude our coverage of PCA Sim Racing from Circuit of the Americas. Round 5 of Series 5 is in the books. So, for Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore at Podium Esports, for our producer, Ryan Bauer, for my colleague in the booth, Taylor Burris, and for Jim Emig, Doug Atkinson, the steering committee, and everyone at PCA Sim Racing and the Porsche Club of America, I am James Pine, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of PCA Sim Racing, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday night from Watkins Glen International.